Kia ora everybody, welcome back. Just a nice light recovery session this afternoon. Backwards walking on the treadmill after last night's little trot and after some lifting this morning. Here in this video, here to talk about, again, more questions that have come through in regards to the Ben Roberts-Smith arrest that took place, I think, yesterday. At the airport, televised, filmed or recorded. Obviously somebody letting the media know that something like this is about to go down, and then the AFP commissioner having the cheek to say that they're not going to name him when clearly somebody within the authorities has let the media know that this was about to go down, or that it was about to go down, and for them to go and position themselves and get some footage. Anyway, questions come through. There's a dude on Instagram. I don't know him, but I believe he's a former Australian soldier. On Instagram, I think it's called Two Worlds Collide. Sorry, I'm going off memory now. I got sent the link yesterday. I had a watch, was it yesterday or this morning? Might have been early this morning. Anyway, I've had a watch of it today. So a bit of time after I got sent the link. And the guy, I don't know his name, but he shares his opinion in terms of his thoughts on the whole Ben Roberts-Smith arrest situation, and raises some comments, mentions some things in and around the government not getting to send soldiers into a conflict zone. He makes some really good points. We're basically into a war where the enemy use IEDs, where the enemy use women and children as human shields, etc., etc. But he keeps going, keeps mentioning, and each of their own, well within his rights. He's an experienced soldier too, from what I understand, and what he's been involved with, what he's witnessed, what he's seen, what he's had to, I guess, endure. And what stuck out to me though was a lot of the comments, as heartfelt and as passionate as he is about them on his Instagram, about the government doesn't get to send us away to these places where they use IEDs, blow us up, where government doesn't get to send us away to a conflict or a war in a foreign country. Government doesn't get to send us away where the enemy use women and children as human shields, etc., etc. So just repeating again what I heard him say, and he goes on to say a bunch of other things. I personally found it a little bit harder to listen to. Just different perspectives. Nothing against the guy. Like I said, I don't know him, but clearly a former Australian veteran, so massive respect to the guy, and he's speaking his truth, right? He's speaking from the heart. He's speaking based on his experience. He's speaking based on how the whole situation with Ben Roberts-Smith is making him feel. And he mentions in there about, the government, you don't get to send the best of our country into a conflict zone or into a war zone and then judge them when they get back for their actions during war. And this is just my take for what it's worth. As soldiers, we volunteer, we sign up to go away, we sign up to go and serve and do that job. We understand the risks when you go through the ranks, even if you're regular military, if you're infantry, as an example. You understand the risk. The whole role of the infantry is to seek out and close with the enemy, to kill or to capture them, to seize and hold ground, to repel attack by day and night, regardless of weather, season or terrain. That gets drummed into you at basic training. You're marching around your camps reciting that. You're standing to attention and having to recite it before you can go into the mess to have a feed. You're standing reciting it in the freezing cold, in the snow, depending on who your section commanders are. So it gets drummed into you, that side of things. And ultimately, we volunteered to do that. We volunteered to put our hand up and go, hey, I'll go and serve. I'll go to that place that you're talking about, where the conflict is happening. And I think any soldier that joins a combat role internally, at least for me, has a desire to want to go and serve in that type of environment, not for glory, not for any chest puffing or tooting your own horn or anything like that, but because you believe in the job that you've signed up to do. And so, although I feel like I can understand where the bro is coming from, to Two Worlds Collide podcast, I think it is on Instagram, we volunteered to do that. And by volunteering to do that, we also signed up and volunteered to not turn into murderers, And I'm not saying at all, I don't think RS at all, based on my experience and knowledge of Ben Roberts-Smith, I don't think he's a murderer, but I wasn't there on the ground, and I don't think the operators within the unit, when I say unit in this sense, I'm talking about SASR in Australia, I don't think the operators within there are just mindless murderers. That's just my opinion, based on my experience, based on my observations, based on my time privileged to serve there, and the men that I was surrounded by. Although RS and I never served in the same squadron. So with regards to that, we are volunteering to do that. If we're sitting back and saying governments don't get to send us, or don't get to send, I use the term loosely, their best soldiers, any soldier, to say that the government doesn't get to send their soldiers to a foreign country to fight in a conflict, regardless of how long it goes for, well, that's what we signed up for. And if that's not what you're wanting to do, if that's your belief and your opinion, you're welcome to it, stand by it. But if that's your thought and perspective on it, then don't go. Okay? Don't sign up in the first place to be a part of a defence force that is designed to defend and to protect their country, but also will align with other nations and will offer assistance in the form of soldiers or equipment or resources as and when that call may come, depending on, I don't pretend to know politics, but depending on, I suppose, what's in it for that particular government and how it might impact their votes or being elected into positions of power or whatever. And or hopefully they're thinking about it from the perspective of how it can benefit not only their own country, but the country where they're sending troops in to go and participate in said conflict, whatever it is. So the people that sent me the link to the bro's comments and sharing his thoughts really passionately about the whole Ben Roberts-Smith situation, I'll be honest, didn't get to the end of it. I found it probably just a little bit hard to listen to, in terms of like his passion and stuff is there. Don't get me wrong, it's cool. But there's, I suppose, some stuff whereby my bias was towards, well, we volunteered to go there and do that job. We put up our hands, said, yep, here we are, we'll go. To then sit back, and I'm not saying that this is what the bro is doing, but to, I suppose, maybe it's in hindsight or reflection, then share the thoughts around saying that the government doesn't get to send us. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a supporter of governments, right? I don't even know what their agendas are, other than I think their agendas are hidden and they're just out to serve themselves. That's what it feels like. I could be wrong, I probably am wrong. There probably are some good people in there that are trying to do really good things. I look at David Pocock as an example, former Wallaby Western Force. That dude, I think he's a senator now in Australia, pushing so hard for things that just sound like common sense to the average Joe, to the normal pleb on the street. But the powers that be and those that have been elected into positions of power somehow, some way have a means and a way of twisting things. Anyway, I'm diverting, going off topic. That's part of the reason why I definitely don't have a lot of confidence in governments and that sort of thing, with their own hidden agendas. It seems maybe too harsh a judgment, but that's my take for what it is. But hearing the brother talk about those things that the government doesn't get to do that. Well, yeah, the government can do that, has done that, will continue to do that as far as I'm aware, with regards to utilising their military forces. I don't want to say at their disposal, but at their request or their ability to enact and enable military forces to go about doing work or participating in a conflict or whatever it might be. So yes, they can do that. Yes, they have done that. Yes, they will continue to do it. So anybody that may have the same opinion, thought, bias as the brother from the Two Worlds Collide podcast on Instagram, if they share his view, and if you're looking at joining the military, then thought that comes to mind is that maybe the military isn't for you, because that is essentially what you're signing up for, what you're volunteering to do should that time come. Hopefully it doesn't, but the way the world is at the moment, the way ongoing conflicts and wars have been happening for years and look like they're going to continue to happen, looking at the war in Iran, America at the time, or Trump in particular, talking about how the war was over. We're now, more than a month into the conflict, into the war. It just seems, can seem like a difficult place to want to stay positive or to think about things in a different light. So, something away from those, because we're just surrounded by it constantly. Social media, I get sent messages, emails, direct messages. I open myself up to that, right? I'm not naive to that. So I accept that, I understand that, and appreciate and respect that people either want to try to get on my goat or wind me up, or some people genuinely may want to hear my thoughts in and around certain topics or subjects when it comes to a military perspective. Maybe not. But either way, again, I volunteered to do that, right? I volunteered to put myself out there, say, here I am. This is some of the stuff that I've been fortunate to do. This is some of the stuff that I react to. And I guess I've been fortunate that people have gone, oh, actually, I wouldn't mind hearing what this old cuzzy over here has to say about it. What's his 2 cents? What has he got to say? A lot of times people probably disagree with me wholeheartedly. A lot of times people may not even take the time to listen. Either or, and a whole bunch of other options. It's neither here nor there to me. That's what I volunteered to do to a degree. I didn't realise that was part of the process, I'll be honest, but I suppose if you're going to put yourself out there on social media and have a, dare I say, have a presence in terms of my little space, then you could, and you should expect, or I should be expecting that comments come through, requests come through, opinions come through, questions come through. I still have the choice whether or not I want to respond to them, answer them, and or whether or not I want to give my take. I didn't have to do that with the influx of messages recently in the last 36 hours thereabouts, going on to 48 hours, but I choose to because, I believe it or not, I do have some thoughts of my own with regards to things that I see happening in and around the place, just like anybody else. Does that mean my thoughts and opinions or my comments are more correct than anybody else's? Hell no. Not by a long shot. They're probably more wrong than anybody else's. But humbled by the fact that people would take the time to ask in the first place. And, not that I'm responding at a time that's probably convenient for the people that have asked the questions, because it's like, can't be bothered doing a big editorial video reaction. I'll just chuck it on a live. The thoughts are raw and fresh in my head. The questions are typically reasonably fresh in my head. And then I can just spitball. And at least that way for me, it comes from the heart at the time, unscripted, and like doing a reaction video, I guess, to a degree, but just responding to the questions that come through. Oh, my darling has come home from work early. Must be because, yeah, good. Whoa, Fijoas, thank you. All good, babe. Yeah, sorry. Forgot where else. I think she'd come home early to take me out for dinner. Aren't I lucky? Well, that's what she said anyway. So I'll get cleaned up after and go for an early dinner with her. But thought I'd try and squeeze that in. My thoughts on the video with the brother who runs the Two Worlds Collide podcast on Instagram. Really passionate words from him. I will go back and finish watching it right through to the end. I haven't done that fully yet, but I've watched most of it. And yeah, I just, like I mentioned, found it a little bit hard to listen to just based on my opinion and the choices that I made to go and serve. To serve in the military, to sign up in the first place, to then apply for a unit like the Special Air Service, knowing full well there's a high possibility that we may be deployed and may have to get involved in things that job and that nature requires. So that being said, that's probably, well, not probably, hey darling, that's why I stopped watching the video, because I was like, I found myself not really agreeing with a bunch of the stuff that was being said in that moment for that period of time that I watched. Now, he may have done an awesome summary at the end and tied all of that together. I didn't get that far, all right? So full disclaimer, no disrespect to the Two Worlds Collide podcast brother on Instagram. I don't even know his name, but much respect to him for his service and what he does and how he speaks with a lot of passion about what he feels is right and wrong and how things should be. Good on him, massive respect to him. I didn't agree with what I was hearing for the parts that I was listening to from the perspective of the volunteering aspect. Nobody forced me to go to the unit. Nobody forced me to join the army. Nobody forced me to do selection. Nobody forced me to go and deploy on operations. Even the fact that we had to, that's right, that we had to get the anthrax inoculation or vaccine, for want of a better term, as if we didn't get that, then we couldn't deploy. Nobody forced me to do that. They told me what the requirements were. If we wanted to deploy, well, you've got to get this anthrax shot and the follow-ups after that. So I was like, well, yeah, this is what I signed up for. So, yep, jab me up, bro. Like, here's my arm. And they did for all of us. So yeah, that's my take. Right or wrong, take it for what it's worth. About 2 F's of F all in the bigger scheme of things. And hopefully that helps answer or give some context to those that reached out. Now, those same people that sent me the link to the Bro Two Worlds Collide Instagram may come back and go, hey, bloody watch the whole thing. So like I said, I will go and watch the whole thing, but I stopped watching it because of where I was and what was going on in my head and what I was feeling as I was listening to him, taking nothing away from the guy and what he was sharing. Oh, bloody hell, I can see some stuff come up on here. Hang on. Pretty much done anyway. West Australian has an interesting take on RS. How do I keep these messages up here, man? Spoken before. I have no idea how to keep these comments up here. How the heck do I do that? On my phone. Why do they... Let me just scroll. Or can I scroll? We've spoken before and I'm currently in uni. But want to serve. I'm just worried about what to do after the army. Love to hear your opinion. Oh, yes. Hey, I have got your email. I was supposed to get back to you. Let me come back to that after this. Hey, Joe. Ben Harvey, the West Australian, has an interesting take on the RS situation. Okay, cool. Thank you for that, Barry Pope. Usually people will have a separate phone for chat. Joe, separate phone for chat. What? Oh, okay. Is that how they have the... Okay. Sorry, it's not me, peeps. Something I'll try to work on. Let me just come back to this other one, Lego Bricks. I won't say the name of this young person who has mentioned that we've spoken before. Thank you for reminding me on here. Apologies for not getting back to you on that email that you have sent and taken the time. Yeah, I remember words to the effect of you're really quite worried about life after if you're able to get into the unit and serve in a job that's really fulfilling. Like, what do you do after? Great question. I think anybody, this is just my take and my experience, I think anybody that is fortunate makes it into a unit like the Special Air Service Regiment, has earned that. They know what it takes in terms of the resiliency to not only push to get there, because you may not be successful on your first attempt. Then again, you may be. Some people, it takes them 2, 3, some people even a fourth attempt. So if you've got that resiliency to go through that, what I've found for me, being out of the military, being away from a job that I loved and still have massive respect and admiration for, wish I was still doing it, I'll be honest, that's just me. The transition and adjusting is different for everybody, but applying that same mentality, that same mindset, like whatever it is next, like right now with me doing social media, that's a huge call for me, from the perspective of feeling uncomfortable, feeling outside my comfort zone, all those same emotions, all those same thoughts, all those same feelings, all those similar sort of experiences that I had before going on to selection, not only in New Zealand, but also again in Australia. That stuff, because I knew, or because I know and knew that I was able to manage it during those times, I just try to apply the same thing. Like I know I can manage it and apply it outside. So for you, young man, with regards to your goal and your mission currently to make it into the unit and worrying about what happens life after, there's a number of things you could do. You could get a trade before you go to the unit. Like you're only young, you could literally get qualified, have education, certificates, all that sort of stuff behind you before you go into a unit like that. So it may take some of the pressure off, whether that's carpentry, whether that's mechanic, plumbing, sparky, whatever trade you choose to do. It might be a technical computering skill. The world's your oyster, basically. There's a whole bunch of things that you could be doing before you go on selection or even make it into the unit. But I would say that even if you don't do that, I didn't do that. Once you get in, you find your feet and you're in the rhythm of things. For me, even though when I got out, and since I've been out, you'll feel a disconnection. I'll be honest, I think every military person, you don't have to serve in the SF space in the military. I think every person, first responder, probably are the same. I know some police officers and that have felt the same. Defence Force, regardless of where you serve in the Defence Force, you will feel a sense of disconnection. You will feel a sense of loss even. I felt that, and I know many other people, soldiers who are not SF, and many that felt that same disconnect, that felt that same loss. The camaraderie, the brotherhood, whatever you want to call it, the friendships, the mateships, you will feel that. And the only way to know what that feels like and to prepare for that really is just to go through it. And it may not be ideal, but hence why the friendships that you build in the military or even before you go, in my opinion, they're important. They're not everything. Those that are in your immediate sphere or your close family, whether it's a spouse, partner, whether it's just your parent, well, not just, but whether it's your parents or your siblings, like they're still going to be there for you regardless. But going through something like selection, getting into the unit, then getting out after, there's another thing that I would say is maybe don't dwell on that. Not maybe, I would say don't dwell on that. Don't dwell on what life is like after your time in the unit, because if the goal and the mission is to get into a unit like that, like that's hard, bro. Like that's hard work. And it's not a case of in Australia, it's not a case of a 21-day selection and then tick the box you're in. You've then got 12 to 18 months of cycle. Then after that, you've got 12 to 18 months of being on probation, earning your stripes, refining your craft, getting better and better and doing the things that you need to do. So don't dwell on, I think you're too young to be dwelling on, oh no, what am I going to do after? It's cool that you've got the forethought to be thinking that way. I'll be honest, I didn't have that. I wasn't thinking that way. I was just very present and determined in terms of what I wanted to do. And I had tunnel vision and had the blinkers on, and I was like, that's where I want to be, that's where I'm going. Whatever happens after that, I'll deal with it when it comes. So that's probably the last part that I'll mention when it comes to going into a unit like the Special Air Service. You learn to, that improvise, adapt, and overcome. As cheesy and or as cliche as that might sound, you learn to do that. And if you can't do that on the fly, or if you're showing that you can't do that throughout selection or on cycle, or once you're on probation and you're in the regiment, well, then it's, you'll get found out pretty quick, and you'll have the conversations, and then it'll be see you later. But if my time in the unit has taught me anything, it's respect and understand where you've come from and the goals that it is that you're wanting to achieve. Focus on and commit to achieving those goals. When you get there and you've achieved the thing that you want to do, refine it, get better, stay the course and improve. Share that knowledge and information as much as you can with those that are also in that similar sort of space and that you're working with. Try and take on board as much as you can, because you're continuously going to be refining and learning and improving in the process. Staying present in that space. And then when it's time for you to leave, or you feel like it's time for you to leave, and you pull the trigger and you commit and you leave, no one trusts that you would have built up enough. That's just my take, my opinion, my experience. You would have built up enough experience, resiliency, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, to be able to just deal with whatever comes your way next. Okay. That's my opinion anyway, for what it's worth. I'll try and send you a message reply in the email that you sent through. Apologies for not getting back to you on that. I think it's probably just been pushed down further with the inundation of other messages and stuff that have come through and questions, but hopefully that helps give a little bit of insight. Just focus on where you want to get there first. Love the work that you're doing, enjoy the time there, learn as much as you can. When you think it's time to leave. When you think it's time to leave, you can start working on your transition before you get out, so you're still there, still surrounded by people that you like being around, still doing a job that you love doing, hopefully, and you're preparing your transition out or your exit so that you can either upskill, either start looking into other things, or when you start looking into what you think it is that you want to do, you might go, actually, I don't like that. I actually just like where I am. I like continuing being here, and then stay in if that's the case. If you just have a dummy spit like I did and you throw your toys out of the cot and you leave, well, then be prepared and know and trust that you can adapt to whatever it is that comes up. Sorry, something popped up and then it went. I was too slow. Hopefully that helps. And thanks for your time and your question. Thanks for all the questions that come through, actually. I did have a bit of a laugh at the AFP commissioner after they gave their opening statements, her and the other guy. Then she said they'll take questions, and then pretty much I think every question that was asked was, I'm not gonna go into detail on that, or I can't do that, or I can't answer that. So yeah, there's sort of a waste of time Q&A. And then the last part was the bro that was next to her, the fella OIC or whatever, or the official investigation chair, talking about what sounded like a whole bunch of gaps in their investigation. So it will be alleged that all these things happened. I think a reporter asked, why has it taken so long to get to this point, to make an arrest and to lay charges? And then the bro started talking about, oh, well, we can't access the crime scenes. They happened years ago. We've got no weapon. We've got no bodies. We can't do an autopsy. I think he said blood splatter, something else like that. A whole bunch of things that he likened to being able to do in a domestic investigation. And with regards to what's happening with Ben Roberts-Smith, that sounds to me like, I could be wrong, sounds to me like they don't have any of that. So in my mind, as I was listening, I was thinking, far out. How does that? I'm no lawyer, but I would assume that those things are pretty critical for building and presenting a case to charge somebody with 5 counts of murder. And then the only final thought I had was on that, and what I was listening to was maybe they're just going purely off eyewitness testimony, whoever the people were that were there on the days and times and giving the information. Maybe that's what they're running off. But it's still, again, I'm no lawyer. It doesn't sound like a rock solid case, if I'm being honest. But anyway, that's just my naivety coming through and my lack of legal experience. So anyway, I better head off now and get cleaned up, and then We're going for early dinner, eh? Woohoo! It's taking me out for my birthday dinner. So appreciate you all, eh? Have a beautiful rest of your day. 8th of April today. And I'll see you on the next video. All right. Stop. Okie doke.